Okay, let's welcome back to the show Young Americans for Liberty analyst Kristin Tate. Kristin, it's always great to have you back on. We're going to stay on the story that we just broke in the last segment. You know, this report that there's a stunning amount of voter fraud, despite Democrats and the media downplaying it. I don't know if you heard the report, but it found at least about 15,000 dead people did vote in 2016 and 2018. The Democrats and the media keep downplaying this. What's your reaction to this stunning new finding?
Well, you know, Liz, for the last 4 years, the Democrats have been telling us they care so much about the integrity of our elections as they defended their endless investigations into supposed Russian meddling. But now that we have actual evidence of voter fraud, we don't hear a peep from the media. This should be something that concerns all Americans, regardless of party affiliation. You know, we should be protecting the ballot box from illegal activities, especially, Liz, since so many of these critical swing states in 2016 were decided by a very slim margin. Fewer than 80,000 votes swung the 2016 election. So voter fraud could really have an impact, especially in these states like North Carolina, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania. This is really infuriating, but unfortunately, the mainstream media is not covering it and the Democrats won't talk about it. And it's because typically the fraud benefits them and their party.
You know, in 2016, 1.8 million voter registrations were found to be for dead people. Doesn't mean they voted, but that's what Pew found. What's, you know, disturbing about this finding is that nearly 44,000 voted more than once from the same address. In 2016, 38,000 or so did that too in 2018. The issue is that Florida, you know, in 2000, the year 2000, Bush versus Gore, that was decided by just 537 votes in Florida. So this is an issue.
Oh, that's exactly right. And keep in mind, this voter fraud that we now know happened in previous elections happened before we had mass mail-in voting. Now we're doing this mass mail-in voting where, you know, sometimes in some states you have ballots being mailed to addresses without people even requesting them. Voter rolls are notorious for being inaccurate. It is no surprise that this is happening. But Donald Trump and great news networks like Fox Business and Fox News need to continue shining a spotlight on this to galvanize voters, especially conservative voters who are concerned about this, to show up in person at the polls and vote. That is the only way you really know that your vote is safe, secure, and counted.
So also this, why are we all of a sudden launching this gigantic nationwide science project experiment of putting the election in the hands of what's been said to be, unfortunately, one of the most dysfunctional agencies, and that's the U.S. Postal Service? Remember the joke, the check is in the mail? Is it going to be now the vote is in the mail? Because there's been a lot of delays and problems at the Postal Service. Why do that now?
It's a great question, Liz. You know, every time you get the federal government involved, things go wrong, and we cannot afford to have things go wrong, especially on a mass scale during the most important election of at least my lifetime. I mean, right now we are deciding the fate of the nation. We have two parties who want distinctly different things for the future generations of this country. We have one party who wants to do away with law and order, who wants top-down control over every aspect of American life and wants to abolish police, and then another party trying to defend our economic and personal freedoms and liberties. This is so critical, this election, and we cannot have it endangered by mass mail-in voting fraud.
Kristin, the debate's coming up between Vice President Pence and Kamala Harris. What will you be looking for? Final word?
Well, I think Kamala Harris is going to make COVID and the Trump administration's response to it her big issue. Mike Pence needs a great response on COVID, and it can't just be the typical talking points about ventilators and vaccines. He needs to point out that Biden's COVID plan is the same as Donald Trump's plan, with one notable exception, Liz, which is that Donald Trump cares deeply about personal and economic freedom. Biden does not. These Democrats want unending, devastating economic lockdowns. They've crushed small business owners. They've closed churches. So if Pence can have an effective but civil response to coronavirus, he's probably going to have a very good night tonight.
Kristin Tate, it's always great to have your analysis. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. I'm Elizabeth MacDonald. It's good to see you. You've been watching the Evening Edit on Fox Business. That does it for us. Lou Dobbs is going to take it away next. We're going to start our live vice presidential debate coverage coming up. Lou Dobbs has it first, and then Neil Cavuto. Stick with us on Fox Business.